Finding someone that understands you is hard because you're human, and there's a lot of different humans out there. eHarmony helps you find someone you can be yourself with. You think no one would understand mourning a plant like it's a loved one, or singing made-up songs to your dog, but that's the type of person eHarmony helps you find. Someone who makes you feel seen, heard, and understood. Get started today on eHarmony. Get who gets you.
Welcome to the CJ Money Way Show podcast, the podcast show where we unlock potential one dream at a time. Today, we have another guest whose journey is truly worth hearing. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the Money Way experience.
What's up, my good people? Welcome to the CJ Money Way Show, the podcast that brings you stories behind its success. Today, we have writer, musician, and cancer patient advocate Ray on the show today. Welcome to the show, Ray. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, CJ. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. I love everything that you're doing. So thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you, man. Thank you for taking the time out your day to coming on. So, Ray, tell us a little bit about yourself, man, and about your background.
Yeah, I'm a writer and musician. I currently live in Southern California. I had been in Northern California, raising my family for a good, 24 years. My wife and I and our little golden doodle Quinn recently moved to Orange County, south of LA, to be closer to our daughter. Enjoying Southern California living. As I was telling you earlier, I don't think I've seen a cloud in 3 or 4 months. So I'm getting kind of bored with that type of weather. I'd like to see some differences there, but maybe that's coming in the fall. Who knows? I'm a writer, a musician, and really just a storyteller. My career, it's pivoted in many different years professionally and what I've done. But one of the common components of my career have been telling stories, whether it's been in investment banking, pharmaceuticals, consumer electronics, high-tech software. My job, has always been involved in kind of telling stories. And kind of late in life, I realized that there were other stories that I wanted to tell other than just professional stories. And that got me into writing articles first, then writing books, writing songs. And so, that's what I try to fill my time up with today is connecting with people, telling stories, hopefully stories that ideally resonate with them, engage with readers, listeners, or what have you.
Yeah, I was listening to you. It was a song back in the day that say, "It never rains in Southern California."
I don't know that it does. I can't tell you firsthand that it does. I've yet to see it, but I've been told that occasionally it rains.
Yeah, it must be a beautiful sight, man. I can't wait to touch down in California, man. I had a couple people that I've met here on Podmatch that actually has invited me to some Laker games, man. I'm a big Laker fan, but I've never been to LA Stadium. I've never been to California, so I'm looking.
We'll have to get you out here. We will. I'll go with you to a Laker game. You can cheer for the Lakers. I'll cheer for the Indiana Pacers. That's my team.
And that's crazy because here I am from Indiana, but I've been a big Laker fan since 1980, since Magic, man. So
I was a Laker fan as a kid too. My father grew up in the Army, and we moved around a lot. And I just liked the Lakers back in the days with Jerry West and Gail Goodrich and players like that. Then Magic was my favorite college basketball player. When he went to the Lakers, I was like, perfect. I like the Lakers. But I also lived in Indianapolis at the time. Yeah. I was actually a ball boy for the Indiana Pacers that season, that rookie season of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird.
Oh yeah.
Back in those days, before the internet, another song, CJ, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. It's like this was like a paper every single day, right? And the Lakers I'd see on TV maybe once a month or whatever. So quickly the Pacers became my favorite team, and then working for them, the Pacers became my favorite team, and they stuck with me. Now, once we have the internet, I can follow the Pacers no matter where I am, including being in the Lakers and the Clippers backyard here in Southern California. So. Go Pacers.
Yeah. The Pacers, they had a pretty good run this year. I think they got a decent team. It was at one point I was a Pacers fan. I had a little cousin that actually played for the Indianapolis Pacers, Glenn Robinson III.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's my little cousin. So I was cheering for him. I've been to a couple of games. So it was one point. They didn't totally have my heart like the Lakers because I bleed purple and gold, man. When you're a fan for 44 years, it's kind of hard to just switch the switch.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I wouldn't want you to switch, but when we go to that game, the losing team, the fan of the losing team is buying the popcorn and the hot dogs, all right?
Hey, you got to bet, Ray. You got to bet. So, Ray, what makes you so fond of storytelling, as you was talking about earlier?
I think part of it comes from I like listening to a good story or reading a good story, right? When that happens, there's kind of like a bit of a magic, right? Whether it's a campfire story as a kid or something your parents are telling you about their family on the way down, a well-told story is memorable, and professionally, I've done that a lot through marketing, is how can you become memorable with somebody? How can you tell a story in a way that resonates with viewers and that you can remember? Brand awareness is tremendous. And right now, currently, there's a commercial that I love. It's for Expedia, a travel company, online travel company. Mm-hmm. And it's 3 Japanese women. They're dancers. They seem to be like, ballet dancers or something in Japan. But one of them has a desire to go to Nashville and go line dancing. And there's not a word in the commercial. It's just it's all visuals and music, but it tells this story of 3 friends from around the world who don't know anything about line dancing, but they see it and they think it looks like a lot of fun, and it's like, let's go together and have fun. And sure enough, they go to Nashville, and next thing you know, they're dancing, and somebody comes up and puts a cowboy hat on one of them, and she smiles, and they're line dancing, and it's a great story. And why is it a great story? Where it resonates with me, it appeals, but at the same time, I remember who it's from. I got the brand recall. It's Expedia. I've never used Expedia before, but I'm open to trying to use Expedia now because this story that they've told in 27 seconds on television really resonates with me. So I like being on the receiving end of a good story, and if I can tell a good story, I like to be able to do that too. And hopefully I can tell some good stories today for you and your audience. We'll see. We'll let your audience be the judge.
Yeah, like I said, I can't wait to get to this one question because even when you sent me that, I'm like, wait a minute, because we'll talk about that in a second. So, Ray, you talked about your many fields that you worked in earlier. You touched up on it. So it seems as though that you've had an incredibly diverse career, including investment banking, pharmaceuticals, electronics, and software. Why so many career changes?
Yeah, years ago I came across an exercise where it's identifying your values. It was from Franklin Covey. Stephen Covey's the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And, his company merged with the Franklin Company, and Franklin Company for years known as planners, the Franklin Planner, to plan out your day and your week. Mm-hmm. But this exercise I went through was identifying your values. And my values really haven't changed for 30 years. It's family, friends, fun, fitness, education, and challenge, right? So those are my values. And I always want to be with a company and within a profession, with a network of people, whether it's personal or professional, that adheres to those types of values. So, and I've always been open for opportunities that come about that are consistent with my values. I started out in finance as a young guy. I wanted to be an investment banker. And I liked it as a kid, and I liked it as a young adult for a little while. Then I realized I didn't much care for it. And mostly it was the people involved in the business. It was a very chauvinistic, egalitarian. You definitely, ate what you hunt. But it wasn't, at the time, in the mid-'80s, America was being kind of swept up with these Japanese management principles. There were self-directed work teams and consensus decision-making. A lot different than the hierarchical nature of investment banking. But that was stuff that I wanted to get involved in. I wasn't skilled in any of it. I was a finance guy. I went back to school, got my MBA with an emphasis in organizational development because I wanted to be around that type of I wanted to help organizations be, more people-centric. I spent a good amount of time working in organizational development, first as a consultant, then as a human resources person in-house. And, almost all of my work dealt with communication. And so that began my kind of entree into storytelling again. There's a lot of storytelling in investment banking. Hey, this is a company or this is an industry. This is why you should pay attention to it. With dealing with communication issues, whether it's through a client or in-house with my own company. That was some more storytelling. And then from there, it just kind of pivoted into marketing and marketing opportunities to tell stories to external audiences. And, I've had opportunities. Some of the opportunities I took, some are opportunities that were forced upon me, jobs being eliminated. So it's time for you to go someplace else. Those have caused some pivots. Some have been proactive moves for me. Other have just been reactive moves. My position's been eliminated. I need to go out and find a new gig. So that's kind of why I've gone about a kind of a lot of different pivots with a lot of different industries. But like I said before, I think that the common theme has been, at least, for the last 30 years, has been, telling stories, engaging people and trying to get points across through storytelling.
Hey, that's cool, man, that you had the smarts and the intelligence and wisdom to have a diverse career like that, to dabble in many things, because I'm pretty sure that each level probably, garnered you or gave you some kind of aspect to probably the things that you're doing now, which I want to ask you about. So tell us, Ray, about your website and what can people find there?
Yeah, my website, thank you for mentioning it, CJ. It's my name. It's rayharchin.com. My website is, really just kind of, hopefully the gateway for people to my audience to engage with me, right? You'll find blog posts for me. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like top of mind random thoughts. It's not quite a diary because I don't do it daily. I know, but I write the occasional article. It's a way for people to find out more about the books I've written, the songs I've written. But really, it's, an invitation to people. It's like, let me hear your stories, right? I love interacting with the audience that I have, particularly the cancer patient, cancer caregiver, and the cancer patient allies out there. It's the subject of my second book. It's a book called Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. And this is a personal book of mine, in that I'm a cancer patient. In March of 2019, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And your audience members, if you're not familiar with that, it is a blood cancer. It's incurable blood cancer, but treatable blood cancer. So I've been under active treatment for, 5.5 years now. And, early on in my fight against cancer, I had the privilege, really, the real honor of having people reach out to me via social media. I was fortunate enough, based on my online persona, to be involved in several interviews, both in print and in video. And when people saw those interviews, they're like, "Hey, man, I want to connect with this guy because maybe they were recently diagnosed." And it's been my absolute honor to speak with these people, whether they're patients or they're caregivers, they're allies, just telling a little bit about my story and journey with multiple myeloma, but also understanding their journey. And, while in that process, I realized that while I enjoy doing that, it's very much a one-to-one type of nature. It's like, how can I scale my impact and do something one-to-many? And so that's why, that was the motivation behind writing this book, Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. And I wanted this book to be a book, from the community to the community and for the community. Therefore, on the back, I work really hard to become and to make this be a fundraiser. So this book, my net writer's proceeds are pledged to the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation. Important for me to be a member of our community, help support our community. We all get something, CJ, right? But together we are stronger than we know. And it's as asking about my website, it's really kind of the it's the digital gateway into hopefully having people interact with me, ask their questions, leave their comments, let me hear their stories. Hopefully there's ways that I can share, then in turn share their stories and amplify their stories. Whether it's through my website or through any of my social properties, which you can get through my website. Like, for example, my TikTok account is, pretty much a cancer patient community that I'm involved with there. And, we support one another in their journeys or fights. Some patients have journeys, some people have fights. The fight metaphor motivates me more than the journey. Journey kind of reminds me of, taking trips with my family, sitting in the backseat of the car or whatever, that's a journey. Cancer and I, we have an adversarial relationship, and I get more motivated and inspired with a fight metaphor. I have a fight, but thank you for asking, CJ. That's what the rayharchin.com website's all about.
Man, that's pretty cool, Ray. And I just want to say one thing about yourself and others that I've met and did interviews here on the CJ Moneyway show is the fight that you guys have, regardless of what you may be going through, but it's the servant mentality where regardless of what you may be going through or have went through, that you guys are willing to go out there and help others get through whatever they're going through. Like sometimes you put what you're going through to the side to help others, man. And that's a testament to a person's character and integrity, man. And I love it.
Yeah, and I want to be of service. To be of service is more rewarding to me than to be selfish. And I have been selfish many times in my life. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying I'm not still selfish sometimes.
I get it.
Yeah, but being of service to others, there's a higher calling, and everything I know about cancer, CJ, has been taught to me by those who've gone before me. And there have been times I've needed a helping hand. And I recognized that early, where people were reaching behind them and pulling me up, right? And I feel good, I feel strong, and if I can reach back and help somebody and pull them forward, man, that makes all the difference in the world to me, and hopefully it means something to them as well. But like I said, just moments ago, we all get something, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all in this thing together, this thing we call life. What can we achieve together by being of service to one another? And that doesn't mean when you're in service to someone else that someone isn't being of service to you too. I benefit from a great number of people being of service to me, including CJ, you. You're giving me an opportunity to be on your show today. Your audience is serving me by giving me an opportunity to share my stories, and of that I'm grateful and appreciative. How can I pay it forward and be of service to others?
Man, that's cool, man, Ray. And I pray that you continue doing what you're doing, man. Because as you say, if I know it's something that says that if I can turn one for the error from their ways, there's a multitude, covered for me. And so, like you say, if I can just take one and say one person, that like the blessings that will come on my life just because I've shared and just because I've helped and mentored somebody that's going through or facing the challenges that I faced, if I can just help that one person, man, like you said, that means a lot to me,
And you never really help just that one person, CJ. There's a multiplier effect, right? The person that you're of service to, they in time understand the service that you provided them, and you role model behavior for them. They provide service to somebody else. And it's sort of like that old commercial back when we were kids, and so on and so on and so on. So it starts with one, starts with you, starts with me, starts with us. But then the people that we touch, they in turn touch others, and it just keeps giving. And but let's be a service, man.
Yeah, that's cool. And like you say, trickle down effect. So, interesting story. So you was talking about your books. And you was talking about being a storyteller. So my next question, and this is the one that when you first hit me up with, I said, wait a minute, man, I've been a Cowboy fan. I was a Cowboy fan for a long time. And then you hit me back and say, no, CJ, that's not what it's really about. So here's my question. So tell us about your book, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh, and what inspired you to write this book?
Thanks for asking about it. It's this book. It's called Immaculate: How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. I'm a co-writer here, and we're going to get into that story here in just a minute. My friend Tom Olenek. I, too, CJ, was a Cowboys fan. I was born in Houston, and as a dutiful Texan, my favorite team was the Dallas Cowboys. My second favorite team, being a dutiful Texan, was the Houston Oilers. And my third favorite team was my mom's favorite team. My mom liked Kenny Stabler, just like everybody else's mom liked Kenny Stabler. And so the Oakland Raiders were my third favorite team. So I'm 60 years old. I was born in 1964. So when I grew up, the Pittsburgh Steelers were gum on my shoes, man. They beat the Cowboys famously in 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
The Houston Oilers could never get past them in the AFC Central Division and lost 2 playoff games at Three Rivers Stadium to the Steelers. And of course, the Oakland Raiders famously lost 3 playoff games to them, including the Immaculate Reception game in 1972, which is kind of what our book kind of pivots around. So the 12-year-old Ray or whatever, if he knew that the 50-something-year-old Ray would be writing a book about the Pittsburgh Steelers, that younger Ray would have been very, very disappointed. But how I got around to coming about is My friend Tom is a Yinzer. And for those of you uninitiated, a Yinzer is a dude from Pittsburgh. Not necessarily a dude, it's a person from Pittsburgh. And no matter where Tom has gone in his life, he's always been from Pittsburgh. He's not from Pennsylvania, he's from Pittsburgh. People from Pittsburgh are from Pittsburgh. They're different types of folks. They view things a little bit differently. And so wherever he has gone, he's been a very proud Pittsburgh person. And wherever he's gone and he's met other Yinzers, one thing that they instantly talk about is the Steelers, or as they pronounce it, Stillers. They'll quickly talk about the Stillers. Now, the Steelers were historically a horrible football team, founded in, I think, 1933 by Art Rooney. First 39 years of their existence, they were struggling to be even mediocre, right? Then all of a sudden, in 1972, with all these great players that they had brought in, people like Mean Joe Green, Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, and others, all of a sudden they became very, very good. And interestingly, at that time, the Steeler faithful, the Yinzers had always loved the Steelers, but it had been a hard job loving those Steelers. Now all of a sudden they had the Steelers. The Steelers were good, and it was an interesting time. A couple of years later, in the mid '70s, when the city of Pittsburgh started reeling economically. The city of Pittsburgh was built upon iron at first, and then the steel industry, and there was a great deal of prosperity in the city. Not so much for the citizens, the workers. They were all, comfortable middle class, but unbelievable wealth by the steel barons, the Carnegies and the Fricks and the like, right? But in the mid '70s, a lot of things conspired to hurt the domestic steel industry and in turn cripple the Pittsburgh economy. So they had to go through this very painful deindustrialization transformation, and they struggled with it. But the one thing that they had, this kind of pillar of strength that they had, was all of a sudden they could look at their football team, which was good, finally. But it was a team that was kind of built in the mirror image of the community. Hard-nosed, gritty, bring your lunch pail to work type of team. These were, the people of the city of Pittsburgh were the people that took showers after work, not before work, right? Yeah. They were, blue collar, hard working. So was this football team, and they were good. And so when Pittsburgh needed a source of strength, as people were losing jobs and the economy was going south, they could turn to their Steelers and say, hey, at least we got the Steelers. So my buddy Tom had lived with that narrative in his mind for like 25 years. And he told everybody about it. He said, this would make a great book. This would make a great book. He told his family was tired of hearing about it. His friends like me became kind of tired of hearing about it. About that same time, though, CJ, is when I got diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And that changed my thought processes a lot. And I think hopefully we'll talk about this a little bit later. But, I started looking at my timeline. Before my diagnosis, CJ, I was going to live forever. Maybe not forever, but I was going to be at least 100 or whatever. Not living was not part of my mindset. Yeah. And I had facilitated in the past these timeline exercises. And it's a really simple timeline. In fact, I'm going to invite you and your audience right now to do this. You just, in your mind or on a piece of paper, even better, you just draw a horizontal line. And at the far left-hand side, you make a little tick mark. On the far right-hand side, you make another tick mark. Now, that left-hand side is your birth. That right-hand side is your death. Now you take a moment and think, where on this timeline am I right now? And it's an introspective exercise. Where do you believe you are? And of course, tomorrow's not promised. We all know that, but where do you know? And prior to my diagnosis, CJ, I was always like in the middle. Then when I got my diagnosis of an incurable blood cancer called multiple myeloma, then I'm like, I'm a lot farther to the right tonight than I believed I was previously. That got me into thinking, I quickly discovered that I had fallen victim throughout my life to taking too many things for granted, primarily taking time for granted. I always took tomorrow for granted, next week, next month, sometimes next year, sometimes next decade. I was going to have the time. And because I had that time, I took people and relationships for granted. Man, CJ's my friend. I love him. I don't need to call him today. CJ's going to be there tomorrow. I'll call him. And you just I began to just put things off a little bit, let's call it procrastination. Not because, a lot of times procrastinators are perfectionists, which, maybe I have a little bit of, but, I just took it for granted, took time, people, relationships for granted. And I became aware of that. Now, we also talked a little bit earlier, I'm a musician. One of the things I'm always on the lookout for is some saying to put on the back of a T-shirt so we can make more money at gigs, right? So I'm always on the lookout for a motto. And soon after my cancer model, I came up with a motto: "If not now, when?" Based on that timeline I was talking about. Like, I don't know how much time I have left. None of us have how much time we have left. So if not now, when am I going to do this? So I grabbed my friend Tom by the shoulders, I think literally, and was like, "Hey, Tom, if not now, when? I'm a writer. Let me help you with this book. Let me start. And if we should get off track someplace down the line from your vision, well, we can stop, or you can pull me back on track." Next thing you know, 18 months later, we were done with the book. It's a book that I'm proud of. It's impossible to tell a story about how the Steelers saved Pittsburgh without talking about the city of Pittsburgh and talking about the Steelers. So there's a historical aspect of it, and there's a sports book aspect of it to make it meaningful to both types of readers. We weave the story back and around. I kind of like to visually think of it as, two parallel strands of DNA, and then, what are the connections from these stories? So, really this book is, a collection of like 60 campfire stories that kind of revolve around each other and take the reader, from the beginning of Pittsburgh, the people who built the city of Pittsburgh, the beginning of the football team and the people who built that football team, the unique personalities involved in both, and how over time through this, through the 70s and 80s, Pittsburgh went through this deindustrialization transformation and came out on the other end smelling like a rose. There's, you're in an area where, you're familiar with Gary, Indiana, and places like that. There's other, Rust Belt cousins, Cleveland, Detroit. Those are cousins of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh came out smelling like a rose. They're known around the world for academia, research and development, particularly in medicine, healthcare, robotics, and technology. They're frequently on lists.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
So that guy I met on eHarmony? Yeah. We're out together last night and I step off a curb and snap, heel breaks right off my shoe.
Oh, no.
So I say, hell with it, take them off so I'm barefoot. And you'll never guess.
What?
He leans over, takes off his shoes and socks, and now we're both...
You're joking.
Amazing, right?
At eHarmony, you'll find someone you can be yourself with. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up for eHarmony today.
Of the most livable cities of around the world. Pittsburgh's come out well. Tom's thesis all along had been, what helped the city? The Steelers. When the city needed a source of strength at its darkest moments, they could look over to Three River Stadium and see what the Steelers are doing, which were really the first dynasty in the NFL, 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. It's a remarkable story. It's a book I'm really proud of. I know Tom's proud of it as well. So go out there and get some.
Don't miss out on CJ Moneyway's book, Both Eyes Open and Both Eyes Shut. And get ready to pre-order his upcoming release, The Issues of Life, coming soon. Moneyway, aiming to inspire.
Yeah, so, man, because you just said some things that I didn't really think of it like that. You say how Gary and Detroit, which I stayed in both. I was born and raised in Gary, and I lived in Detroit for 5 years. Like you say, Ohio, how they the cousins to Pittsburgh, and while some of the other cities not doing, didn't come out smelling like roses, Pittsburgh did. And so that's kind of intriguing the way that you, like you say, you are a storyteller, and I'm sitting here listening to your storytelling. And so it makes me want to go out here and get the book. And so as I'm asking this right now, Ray, where can we find your book at, man? Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, where can we get this book from?
You can get Immaculate: How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. I've been taught to say this: wherever fine books are sold. So you can buy it at any bookstore as well as my website. It's funny, in the writing business, you're not really supposed to talk about Amazon. Amazon spends, they sell about 60% of books. And bookstores get angry when you talk about Amazon. In fact, if Amazon's like first on your website, buy my book on Amazon. They'll look at it and say, I don't know if we even want to carry your book. Because and on the other hand, Amazon could care less if you talk about Barnes and Noble or Books A Million or what have you. They could care less because they know that people are still going to shop on Amazon. But we will connect offline, CJ. I'll just mail you a copy. You don't have to worry about of going out buying one. But do me a favor, if you like the book, please leave a review at any bookseller site that you care to visit.
Yeah, I will do that, and I will ask that you do the same here. If you enjoyed your time on the CJ Moneyway Show, leave me an Apple review. But you did make a good point as far as book, because there's me being a writer myself, and I just previously got a book that's coming out. You said something that was intriguing, that like don't mention Amazon because the other bookstores don't appreciate or don't like that aspect of it. I never knew that, and so you're giving me some, and probably some of the audience, some wisdom and understanding of some things, some insight that we probably just didn't know.
Yeah, I will tell you that if you self-publish your book through Amazon, no bookstore will ever touch it. So if it's important for you out there in the audience, you're a writer, if it's important for you to have a book on the shelf of Barnes and Noble, do not publish it through Amazon. Instead, there's a whole bunch of other publishers out there that you can do it. What you want to do is, find a publisher that distributes through the biggest distributor in the United States is Ingram. Find a publishing company that distributes through Ingram, and then other bookstores will, be willing to, if the book has merit, and if they're interested and they think they can market it and sell it, they'll be interested in carrying it. But if you publish through Amazon, which is okay to do. I mean, like I said, 60% of the books are published through Amazon. Just know if you publish through Amazon, other bookstores, they take it personally. They particularly an independent bookseller, they make their living off their bookstore, and they view Amazon as taking food off their plate.
Yeah. So I appreciate it, Ray. When you send me a copy of the book, man, send me some of that information that you're talking about. Cause like I said, I haven't published it yet, but of course I was going to publish it through Amazon, just like I did my first book. But, you're giving me some wisdom and insight on that. So
and it's not necessarily a wrong move, right? If you're cool with not having it in Barnes and Noble, go, reach out to your audience and, have it available from you, and your website. So it's not the wrong choice. It's just, being aware of, that you as a writer and, all of you out there in the audience as artists, you have options, and just, know what the pros and cons of each one of these options are.
Okay. Yeah, I want to try something different. So, Ray, let me move on real quick. Let's continue talking about sports. What are the biggest differences between the NFL today and the NFL in the 70s and the 80s?
Yeah, it's a good question. I love talking about this, and I could talk about it for a long time. I watched a lot of games on YouTube in writing Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. And first of all, it's great. If you are of a certain age, like my age, going back and like listening to Howard Cosell in the booth again, it's like, oh man, This is awesome. Kurt Gowdy, Dandy Don Meredith. Are you kidding me? It was so enjoyable watching it. But a couple of things I like to point out. Well, one is, if you come up with when we come up with our list of best football players ever, we tend to have this recency effect. It's got to be Patrick Mahomes. He's won 3 Super Bowls. It's like if you have a top 10 list of players, and Mean Joe Green is not on that top 10 list, you need to take a step back and kind of reconsider your list. That guy, you go back and watch the games on TV, double teamed on every single play, and he impacted every single play when he was on the field. An absolute beast. He's definitely one of the best players ever. When you think of defensive tackle, you kind of think of like Aaron Donald of the Rams, who recently retired. Mean Joe Green was Aaron Donald of the Rams before, 45 years before Aaron Donald played in the NFL. So that's one thing. The game back in the 70s, 80s, Much different game today. One of the biggest changes came offensively with the illegal contact rule. They called that the Mel Blount rule at the time. Mel Blount, number 47, Hall of Fame cornerback for the Steelers. He is still today the prototypical NFL defensive cornerback. He tall, rangy, had speed, and he had a kind of a little mean attitude too. He tackled with intent and purpose. He wasn't afraid to tackle. But, he would mug receivers at the line of scrimmage. We talk today in today's NFL about a quarterback, throwing a receiver open. And also, a quarterback just like Peyton Manning, knowing where everybody was on the field. So if Peyton Manning was under distress in the pocket, he knew where a receiver was. He was going to be, you didn't have to look at him. Just throw it over there. I know Marvin Harrison's going to be there, and he's going to, compete for this football. Back in the 70s, before the Mel Blount rule, the illegal contact, a quarterback never knew where the receiver was going to be because they were getting molested from the moment the ball was snapped. Right at the line of scrimmage, they maybe should be at the, like in this one particular area, but they might be 5 yards away from it just because they've been having to fight through a defensive back to get there. So, a quarterback had to make eye contact, really, see where they were. You go back and look at, passing percentages in the NFL back in the 70s. If you were completing 50% of your passes, you were having a very good year. In today's NFL, if you're not completing 2/3 of your passes, you're not playing football. It's just a fact of the matter, right? And then, it seems like today in the NFL, offensive coordinators and head coaches, play callers on the offensive end, fall in love with their really thick playbooks. They have these big sheets and they've got 100 different plays that they've practiced and game planned for. Back in the 70s, quarterbacks called their own plays. Terry Bradshaw, the Steelers, called his own plays. And there was a prevailing thought of, we are going to run a play. And if you can prove to us that you can stop it, then we'll maybe try another play. And sometimes you would only run a handful of plays a game because the other team could not stop you. So it's, you see today's NFL, sometimes it's aggravating to watch. You'll see a team have success, like 3 running plays in a row. And maybe they pick up a first down or down to like 2nd and 3 on, the second series of down. Then all of a sudden it's like, I stole the ball. It's like, well, you were just running the ball effectively. Yeah. Why would you want to change it? Make the other team to stop you. These 3 yards and a cloud of dust types of days from the 70s, those have gone away to, this, high scoring game that, emphasizes offense. The rules are definitely favor the offense in today's NFL. Every single defensive penalty except for offsides results in an automatic first down, for example. Yeah. Back in the day, it was all about running the football, time of possession, field position, not turning the ball over, not making the stupid penalties. So it's a different game. That being said, I like them both. I watch a lot of football today, CJ, and I'm super excited about the season coming.
I totally agree with you. Totally different game, like you say, to the point where now sometimes it seems like it's flag football out there. You can't touch the quarterback.
Oh, that's another big thing, huh? I like what, a couple of years ago, there was somebody on NBC referred to as nothing the quarterback call. It's like exactly, back in the 70s and 80s, the quarterback was just another player, right? Right. You could hit him high, you could hit him low, you could fall on him. I mean, today's NFL, you're not allowed to fall on the quarterback. It's tackle football, but you have to. I remember a game between the Raiders and the Dolphins, 6-7 years ago, where a Dolphin player hurt his knee, tore his ACL, trying to sack the Raiders quarterback and not land on him. Patrick Mahomes sells tickets, not, Christian Wilkins, his team.
Exactly. And then something that you said too about, like back in the day when we played Pop One and things like that, if you run into the right side and you got that hole open every time, you go keep going. And it makes me think about the Super Bowl with Seattle and the Patriots. That last drive, Marshawn Lynch was just killing them on the run game. And why would you pass it on 1st and goal? It's just beyond anybody's imagination. When Russell threw that interception in the end zone, Marshawn, they couldn't stop him, pass the ball in that situation.
And I also want, I'm disappointed that you brought that up, CJ, because Cowboys were my team back when I was a child. I moved to Seattle before the internet. And, so when the Seahawks were in the paper every day, if you can't be with the one you love the one you with. So I became a Seahawks fan. So you just brought up it's got to be the single worst memory of all Seahawks fandom is that one play. That would have been back-to-back Super Bowls.
Yeah.
One thing I do Richard Sherman, if you're out there listening, there's a lot of times the defensive players on that team, the Legion of Boom, and Richard Sherman's been vocal about it in the past. It's like, run the ball, Pete, run the ball. Pete Carroll, the head coach of the Seahawks. Left unsaid and unspoken is that the vaunted Seahawks defense gave up a 10-point fourth quarter lead that game too, right? So it was a team effort in not winning the Super Bowl. But boy, it sure would have been nice if Marshawn had just one more try to get in the end zone.
He could have had multiple tries, but that drive, he was just killing them on that drive. They couldn't stop him on that drive, and for the life of me, just don't know why they wouldn't run the ball. That was Super Bowl. That was a Super Bowl right there. Yeah. But so Ray, I'm pressing time right now. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this question. In 2019, you were diagnosed with cancer. Can you share how that diagnosis has changed you?
Yeah, and I've talked a little bit about it already. When I was first diagnosed with cancer, I had a little bit of a lead up to it. There was a routine blood test that came back. I was anemic, low hemoglobin, low red blood cells. And so, we tried to find the source of my anemia. And as we were doing it, I went to go see a hematologist. And I learned that almost every hematologist is an oncologist. So that was my first warning. I was like, oh, that's the first thought of cancer. Before I was just anemic. Now maybe there's a cancer. And then as we were working through more and more sophisticated blood tests, and eventually came to a bone marrow biopsy, my doctor was kind of saying, it could be lymphoma, could be multiple myeloma. It's probably going to be something that ends in an A and something that's kind of, pretty scary. For me, it turned out to be multiple myeloma. And, when I first got diagnosed, cancer is pretty much the first thing I thought about when I woke up in the morning. The last thing I thought about, I went to bed, and, filled up a lot of that time in between too. But it's changed since. I had help. I joined a patient support group like a week after diagnosis, right? Mm-hmm. And I've learned a lot of things through cancer. Cancer has, I think when I walked into it, it's like, what's cancer going to take away from me? And one thing that's taken away from me is that I can't travel freely. I have treatment once a week, and this, I can't, it's not a pill I take. This is intravenous, chemotherapy, and also an injection of immunotherapy drug. I've got to, go down the street once a week. So I can travel. I just got to make sure it's less than a week, or I find someplace else to get my treatment. Mm-hmm. Cancer does take away, and there's a feeling about taking away. But, I quickly realized that cancer gives also, right? And I fall back to the roles that I had. When I got diagnosed with cancer, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm an uncle, I'm a bandmate, I'm a boss, I'm a teammate, I am an employee. I had all these roles that I played. And you know what? When I got diagnosed with cancer, I still had each and every one of those roles, but I had other roles now. Now I had a cancer patient advocate. I had fundraising roles. Things like that. Cancer gave me more purpose in my life. And each one of those roles I had before, I still have. Now I have some new roles. All of them have accountabilities associated with them and things that I want to get done. So that's, one thing that I learned, is having a growth mindset throughout my life. Why can't I apply a growth mindset to situation I'm undergoing with my health? And what are the growth opportunities there? I love raising money. I love raising awareness about all health concerns, but particularly blood cancers. September is Blood Cancer Awareness Month, and I will be working my tail off having people understand that, you might feel good, but you still need to go to your doctor. I've been asked many times when I first got diagnosed, what can I do for you? And I will share with your audience right now what you guys can do for me. One, go see your doctor. I had 90% of my bone marrow was cancers. I didn't feel a thing. It came up with a routine blood test, a routine CBC blood test, complete blood count, that I was anemic. It turned out 90% of my bone marrow was cancers. Go see your doctor at least once a year. Make sure that you have a blood test associated with it. Second thing you can do is eliminate what I call the twos. And you don't need a doctor and you don't need Ray Harchin to tell you what the twos are. Those things are like you exercise too little, you drink too much, you smoke too much, you eat too much red meat, you don't eat, you eat too few fruits and vegetables, etc. Just understand your risk factors, mitigate your risk factors to the degree that you feel comfortable. Third thing is if you know somebody undergoing a serious health illness, reach out to them. They need the help. Trust me. My wife and I'm so glad that I have my wife, Lori. She's my rock to this whole thing. We are inundated just with mail, physical mail. There's, not only do we have doctor's appointments and treatment schedules and medicines to take and the like, but there's just a correspondence between insurance companies and care providers, pharmaceutical companies. It can be daunting. Reach out to anybody you know that has something that they can use to help and they can appreciate the help. And the fourth and final thing I want to what you can do for me is find your passion. You're going to know what your passion is because it's going to speak to you. It's going to be a little incessant itch that won't go away. And find that passion and donate your time and or your money to that passion. And like I said, CJ, we're all in this together. Let's help one another out through this entire thing. So, cancer's taught me a lot, having that growth mindset. And then, reiterating it again, very meaningful for me. Understanding the perils of taking too much for granted, particularly time, people, and relationships. What's most important to me? What do I want to get done? And who do I want to do it with? Having clarity around that has benefited me. It's allowed me to write 2 books. I have a 3rd book on the way. It's coming out later this year. It's about the Indianapolis 500. It's called the Indy 500, a diary of the greatest spectacle in racing. And, I'm getting things done. And I'm doing it with the people I want to because cancer slapped me awake and pulling me in the right direction.
So, Ray, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I got one more question for you before we leave. And I appreciate your storytelling. And when you say September is, you say Blood Awareness Month?
Blood Cancer Awareness Month.
Blood cancer. So let's make it next year, man, around that time. Let's do something else where you can talk about, get in depth about what this really entails. And, we can put something out there on that, man, to give us more awareness about the things that you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I would love that opportunity, CJ. Hopefully your audience will entertain the possibilities of me returning on the show. They'll let us know, right?
And too, man, whenever you come out with that next book, let's make something happen. So my last question, Ray, is this. What advice would you have for people who have recently been diagnosed with a serious health issue?
Yeah, you need to be your strongest advocate. And if you feel uncomfortable doing that, then maybe reach out to somebody who can be your advocate. I hear sometimes, people say like, my doctor doesn't listen to me, and I will say that, you need to consider getting a new doctor. Right. So, you need to have the healthcare professionals around you that you feel comfortable with. And then find out as much as you can or as much as you want at a particular time about your condition and treatments, but don't get caught up in getting your medical degree from Google University, because just like a lot of other topics, there's a lot of garbage out on the internet as well too. But look at things, make sense of what's out there and the information you get. Don't, be wary of going down rabbit holes that aren't beneficial to you. And then also maybe consider compartmentalizing what you need to know. Like I don't want to know. I'll give an example. I had a stem cell transplant at the end of 2019. But before that, I needed to get ahead of a stem cell transplant. I needed to take medications. I needed to get the cancer level lower before I got into it. Let me worry about the stem cell transplant later. I don't need to learn about that in March, April, May of 2019. I wasn't going to do it till October, November of 2019. Let's focus on like things I can control. What's my diet like? My nutrition, my physical conditioning, like my headspace. What do I need to talk about in my group, or what do I need to listen to? Consider compartmentalizing. Don't try to boil the ocean at once with your serious health condition. Is break it down into little chunks. And your journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Let's take that one step first. Let's take that next step first. You can get to the 1,000 miles later. Let's not try to jump to 1,000 miles. That becomes daunting. You don't even know where to start. It's like, so let's start at the beginning. Take it one step at a time.
So Ray, and leaving, man, is there anything else that you would like to share with us before we leave?
I do want to share, again, my thanks and my gratitude. I love what you're doing, CJ. All of us have stories to tell. particularly about the challenges that we stared down and accepted and overcome. A show like yours helps people hear those things and see those things. So I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you having me on the show. I appreciate anyone who's sitting around listening. Thank you so much. And if there's anything that I can do of being of service to you, particularly if you are a cancer patient or a cancer patient caregiver, please reach out to me. My social handles, they're all Ray Harchin at all the platforms, except for TikTok, where for some reason I have a 5 behind the end of my name. I'm not sure why, but maybe my fat fingers pushed it by accident. But please reach out to me if there's anything I can be of service to you. It's truly been the honor of my life to be able to do that with folks from around the world because of these books. And I would love to hear more about your stories when you reach out to me.
Oh, man, I appreciate the encouragement, Ray, man. I appreciate you coming on, giving us your insight on some of these topics. And you are a fantastic storyteller, man, I will say. And so, like I say, man, I appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Thank you, man. I never said I didn't like to talk. I hope this episode's not too long.
It's good. It's all good, man. I appreciate you, Ray. And like I say, let's connect and collaborate later on down the line, man, especially by next summer so we can have something out for the blood cancer awareness next year, man, so we can do something with that. And your book, man, I want to know what your book about the Indy 500. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people interested in things of that nature.
I'm excited about that book. I read a book as a kid about the Indy 500. It was about the 1970 race. And so I want to do the same thing. Hopefully if a kid can read my book and develop a passion for the Indy 500, then man, I've done my job.
I hear you, man. Hey, so get prepared to go get the Indy 500 book. Also, go get his book, The Steelers That Saved Pittsburgh, and his memoir that I didn't get a chance to get his memoir. He has everything on his website. Hey, my man, Ray, my new friend. Hey, Ray, don't forget, man, we going to a Lakers-Pacers game. I'm going to mark it on my calendar. I'm going to try to get down that way the next year or so, man.
That's right. Go Pacers.
Go Lakers. Hey, you have been listening to the CJ Moneyway Show with your host, CJ Moneyway, and my new friend, Ray from Southern California. All right, we out of here. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the CJ Moneyway Show. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends, leave a comment, and drop a review. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday and Friday for more inspiring journeys. Who knows? Your story might be next.
So that guy I met on eHarmony? Yeah. We're out together last night and I step off a curb and snap, heel breaks right off my shoe.
Oh, no.
So I say, hell with it, take them off so I'm barefoot, and you'll never guess.
What?
He leans over, takes off his shoes and socks, and now we're both...
You're joking.
Amazing, right?
At eHarmony, you'll find someone you can be yourself with. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up for eHarmony today.